what you're proposing is the cost of this project. Is that, Mr Whitby, do I understand you correctly?
That's the initial estimate, but
Yes.
for clarity, the purpose of the fefeasibility
Yes,
study
that's the
is
purpose.
to
Yes,
determine
exactly. I'm
in
just wondering
detail what the actual cost
how you
will be.
reached that figure of $2 billion.
Sorry?
Where did you get the figure of $2 billion from?
That was an internal estimate of the company.
I see. So for $2 billion, you're suggesting, what is it, a 2,000 megawatt power station, 27 kilometres of tunnel, that's through Talbingo Mountain. You're building a power station 1 kilometre underground. Presumably there'll be pumps and other plant required. And I'm just wondering, how feasible is the $2 billion?
We believe that was a reasonable estimate at the time. The critical aspects that I mentioned are the costs of the civil works, and the key issue that will determine that is the geology in the underground locations, which will determine the construction methodology and the costs thereof. I think probably the thing that has moved significantly is the technology that's deployed in constructing tunnels these days.
But you already know the geology of the Talbingo Mountain.
This is, for clarity, it's not the Talbingo Mountain.
Where is it then?
It's between the top end of Talbingo and Tantangra, which goes through basically the main range. So it's not the Talbingo.
Not quite there. So you don't know the geological structure?
We obviously have surface geology. As Paul mentioned, the next phase, subject to approvals, is to do a number of exploratory drill holes.
That's a catch-22 top-position. You don't know the geology. How do you know the costs?
Well, that's the point with respect, Senator, of doing the feasibility study.
I'm just... I'd be interested to see. You're saying this will all be done by the end of the year?
That is our current timeframe, and we are committed to meeting that timeframe.
The feasibility study will be completed by the end of the year?
That is correct.
Will it assess the water requirements?
Water is obviously a consideration, but I can say that in terms of our overall operation, there will be zero impact because the water licence, Paul said, is one of our key attributes, but it operates at the boundary of the scheme. The point of regulation is done at Junima Dam. Junima Dam is downstream of our current pump storage location, which I might add is the largest in the country, being Tumut 3. The operation of that pump storage facility, Tumut 3, has been...
Did you almost run out of water in February, on February 10th? In that dam?
Tumut 3 has a very large capacity, but has a very limited
energy. Is that the case?
Energy.
Did you almost run out of water on February 10th?
Sorry, I'm actually trying to listen to Mr Whitby's answers and you keep cutting him off. It would be good if you could let him finish his sentences.
I was just explaining for context that Tumut 3 has a very large capacity, but has a relatively small energy storage associated relative to the capacity that it can generate at. So it is true that the ability of Tumut 3 was rather constrained on the 10th of February. We didn't run out of water, but it was a critical factor that we had to manage.
I've used an appropriate word. I say, you almost ran out of water. What word would you use? You say constrained. How close to being able to not be able to generate power at all were you on that day?
We had a number of hours of continued operation, but we were carefully managing. I might just use the opportunity to link it back to Snowy 2.0. The proposal of Snowy 2.0 actually aids our ability to manage that storage and enhances the capability to meet peak demand.
So you won't need to change the water capacity?
No, by feeding water more rapidly from Tantangra storage into Talbingo, we enhance the capability of Tumut 3.
All right, what was the minimum, if we go back, let's just go back over the last 10 years. What's been the minimum storage levels in Talbingo? What's the lowest level that reservoir has got down to?
I would have to take that question on notice.
But it has got to very, very low levels, has it not?
It's a storage that is fully utilised, so
Yes,
the
yes,
answer
yes.
is
Less
yes,
than
but
10%?
I would imagine so.
Less than 5%?
Don't know.
I mean, there is a point at which these dams actually be damaged if they go too low. Is that not the case?
No,
Not the case.
no, they won't be damaged.
Not damaged.
Not damaged,
The
no.
walls can't be damaged if they go too low.
No.
Is there a minimum point at which the authority will not allow water levels to fall on any of the dams within the scheme?
There's a minimum operating level, which is the level, for example, at Talbingo, that you start to draw air, or you start to risk drawing air into your turbine, which is not a good thing.
Not a good thing, yes.
So that's
We'd heard, yes.
That sets the minimum operating level which we're prepared to run the power station.
And is
at.
it the case that in the other reservoirs there's a minimum operating level? What is that?
Each of the reservoirs have a minimum operating
Can you
level.
give me on notice what that is?
For each one?
Each one?
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
you.
No problem.
It's public information.
So, this is not, all of this is public information. This is your public authority, aren't you still?
No.
No.
As Paul...
You're not a public authority anymore.
Senator Carr, please allow Mr Whitby to at least
That's
answer your
why I tried to
questions.
explain at the front end, we're a corporation.
Yeah. So what is your obligation then? You say that your primary obligation now is to your shareholders.
We are a corporations law company, and yes, we must. We have a fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of our shareholders.
Who are your shareholders?
New South Wales, Victoria, and the Commonwealth.
The people of Australia. What role do they have in your operation?
People of Australia are represented through the shareholders.
Exactly. Your obligations are, you are a publicly owned company. The GBE, you are a government-owned company. Your obligations surely are to the people of this country.
No.
Our
No.
No, the legal obligations under corporations law of the directors of the company are really clear. And we are no different to AGL or Origin or anyone else. Just our shareholders different.
So you don't see your primary obligation to the people of this country.
No, our primary obligation is to deliver on our licence and to maximise value to our shareholders. That's right.
Shareholders, of course, happen to be three governments whose primary obligation is to their constituent bodies, being the
Thank
people
you.
of Australia, the people of New South Wales.
All right,
and
so
the
let me
people
just
of Victoria,
just
Senator
keep going in terms of this, the feasibility approach. And there are no protocols at the moment in terms of the minimum operating arrangements for each of the reservoirs.
sorry, can
Are there any protocols in place at the moment for the water levels in each of the reservoirs?
internally, yes.
Are they publicly available?
No,
Why not?
because we internally manage our storage to the levels that we manage to.
So what is a commercial in confidence, is it? You publicly declare your water levels?
No,
They're on your website?
I said that the minimum operating levels were publicly available.
Yes. But is there no protocol on what levels you'll go to?
We operate within the maximum operating levels and the minimum operating levels.
Well, we'll come back to that. Can I ask, in regard to the operations here, you said you have to get approvals from the National Parks Authority, do you?
Correct.
For drilling?
Correct.
Where will the stone go or the overburden go that you take out of these tunnels?
With respect to the construction, the tunnel spoil, that's one of the key aspects of the feasibility.
27 kilometres.
Correct.
Have you got a plan at the moment?
We have some concepts, but we have to assess them environmentally and commercially.
So questions of water is a factor, and tunnel spoil is another factor.
Correct.
Now, I presume the other aspect of the feasibility study will be commercial viability.
Correct.
Is that right? And what basis are you calculating that? Is that on terms of at what price are you calculating for your commercial viability on this?
That will be subject to market analysis that the company will do.
And ownership of the company, will that be a factor?
Not of the feasibility study.
Because the government's proposing to buy back the company, to purchase the Victorian government and the New South Wales government shares. Is that,
That's the proposal, yes.
have those conversations commenced?
I don't know, you'd have to ask the government.
That's a government matter. It's not
Not
a
for us.
question for the board.
No.
Would there be any change to your legislation required for that to be secured?
I think that's still to be determined by the respective parties. They may not sell until they work out what they're going to do. Then the question of
I'm asking-
legislation.
Yes, I guess I'm asking, have you provided the government with any advice on what legislative
No,
changes would be
we
required?
have not.
And you have not been asked?
No.
Has the department provided any advice on the of the purchase of the Victorian and New South Wales government shareholdings?
Senator, we'll go through that in item 4.1, but...
Yeah, but you can't answer that now?
Yes, we have.
You have provided that advice?
Yes.
And when was that done?
Sorry?
When was that done?
I'll have to take that on notice, Senator. I don't know when.
We'll come back to that too, thank you. And can I ask, in regard to the actual process, you mentioned that you spoke to the Prime Minister's office on the 3rd or the 5th of March. Is that right, Mr Broad?
It is.
Yes. So did you approach the Prime Minister's office or did they approach you?
I thought you'd ask that question. I was trying to determine that. It came after the arena one. I'm not sure how that process, they contacted us, we then, I'm not sure how that worked. I'll come back to give you, take
Thank
on
you.
notice.
Would you just who initiated that
Yeah, the
arrangement?
person involved in our place has now left the company, so I'll have to go back to her and find out exactly how it happened.
Thank you. And in terms of the arena contact, you initiated that contact, did you, on the 24th of February?
Yes.
And
We've been
on
in
the-
discussion with Arena throughout February, and the submission went in the 24th, and I'll double check, I think it was 13th of March, the other one, so I'll have to
Thank you.
double check.
If you
the
wouldn't
dates.
mind, Mr Broad, because my understanding, Arena told us that the contact was on the 14th, or on the 24th. I thought
24th
that was
of March.
actually...
That's right.
That was the day on which
Yeah,
the
but
first
we-
contact was made as well. But is that not
I think
your
if
understanding?
you listen to Arena, what they said was that they had lots of contact with us, but the formalities of the contact concerning the scheme on the 24th.
And what documentation did you provide to Arena on the 24th of February?
I'll take it on notice and I'll supply whatever documentation to the
Thank
committee.
you. And if you would, this proposal for a $29 million feasibility study, what documentation has been provided for that?
We provided a submission to our board, who approved it.
But there's been an application to Arena for additional funding. What documentation has been provided to Arena?
So we, as I said on Friday, we put an application in for $8 million, and there is a process by which that application is made, and we're following that process.
I see. The $8 million, and you'll make up the rest, will you?
We will.
That's the intention, you see. And this project will be financed. How do you intend to finance this project?
Yeah, it's in that will be determining the feasibility.
But presumably by borrowings, company borrowings,
There will be borrowings, of course.
or would it be from government borrowings?
No, we borrow on our own right.
Yes, but you'll entirely finance through the Snowy Mountains Authority.
No, we borrow on our own right, and we borrow enter the market for debt financing like anybody else.
No application for government to fund.
I'm saying that'll determine in the feasibility. We may, not ruling it out, but I'll wait till the feasibility comes through.
Thank you. And in regard to what's the current profitability of the company? How much are you making a year?
We'll make EBITDA, we'll go over 800 million this year.
I see. And what's the shares for each of the, how does that divide between the three shareholders?
58% to New South Wales, 58?
29 to Victoria and 13 to Commonwealth.
Of the 800 million?
No.
What's the profit?
So of the profit, now the shareholders, each of the three shareholders, okay? One's 58%, one's 28%, and one's 13%. They have 3 equal votes. While the shareholding's different, they have 3 equal votes. We declare a dividend each year, and the dividend is roughly 200 million or thereabouts, and the dividend is distributed based on their shareholdings.
What's the capacity that the scheme's running at the moment? What capacity? Do you have any spare capacity?
It's approximately 4,000 megawatts. No, we don't have spare capacity, given that under most conditions, transmission is constrained both to the north of Snowy and to the south of Snowy.
But there's periods in which the scheme's not actually in operation, isn't it? I mean,
Correct.
You're not in full operation every day, are you?
No.
Well, no, we don't operate continuously. We are in operation most days. But by design, we can only operate for a limited period of time.
So you sell electricity into the market at spot pricing?
We provide insurance, so we provide financial hedges into the market, and we also operate in the spot market, of course.
And then you have you have 2 energy companies, is that correct, that you sell to consumers?
To retail companies, yes.
Retail companies, yes,
Yes.
is that right?
Yes.
And where do they get their electricity from?
Us.
So you do operate for them on a regular basis?
Correct.
But we buy equally, we buy in the market. We just don't.
You don't generate every day?
No, we buy base load from the market. We're energy short, capacity long.
We buy and sell, in other words.
The feasibility study, who's going to undertake that?
SMEC.
Who owns SMIC?
I think it's been recently bought by Singaporeans.
Why have you chosen to have the feasibility study undertaken by SMIC? Which is the... SMIC is the, what is it, Snowy Mountains Electricity Corporation? Is that what it is? Is that what it's called these days?
Snowy Mountains Engineering Corporation.
Yeah. Why have you chosen them?
We went through a process and we got the 3 best we thought in the world to put proposals to it, and they were the best. Plus they have enormous knowledge of us. They grew out of this regional Snowy, as you would know. Mm-hmm. They were the engineers who built the Snowy. Mm. And fortunately some of them are still alive today. So they have a deep knowledge of who we are and what we are. They have offices in Cooma, which and they have a deep knowledge of what we are. They've got lots of experience and they presented the best case to us.
And so, what was the process you went through to select SMIC to do this?
We invited 3 lots to come in and submit their proposals to us.
So a selected tender, was it?
Yeah.
Who were the 3?
Again, I'll take on notice to give you the other 2. Can't remember off the top of my head. One was Jacobs and the other one was
Mott McDonald.
Yeah, Mott McDonald. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how long did the process take?
A matter of a few weeks.
So what's the date they were selected?
The board formally approved the last board meeting, which was last week.
I see. So you put out a press release on the 12th.
Yeah.
Is that
Day
right?
before. The board would approve the day before.
So on the 11th, the board would have approved it, is that right?
Yeah.
And you're saying the process took a couple of weeks prior to that, is it?
Yes.
So it started, in early May, did it?
No, we got engaged just back in, would have been toward the end of March, April. We then preferred SMEC, then we did a lot more work with SMEC themselves to get up to make sure we got the scope right and to make sure we understood where we have to supplement SMEC, and then we took their submission to the board.
And they've got a contract obligation to finish by the end of the year, have they?
No, the contract obligation is to deliver work. It's our responsibility to deliver up the feasibility outcome to the board in December or in late November.
I see. Look, this is a proposal that's been around, and I read your press release of the 12th of May, and it says it's been around for some time.
1966.
66. So you referred to the memo. That's what the proposal you're referring to there, is it?
The memo by Sir William Hudson to the
Yes.
Commonwealth at the time,
Yes.
recommending this pumped hydro proposal.
Right.
However, it was not proceeded with because thermal power came on.
Right. And you said there were 2 reports into this matter.
Yes, 1981 and 1991.
What's the name of those reports?
Can't remember off the top of my head.
look, I'm interested to see them because are they available?
We don't make them generally available, no.
Why
but
not?
we could. We could.
Well, yes, I've been asking if, because we're trying to get hold of them, and
I
I'm
think
told
we
that
might
these
take that on
were...
notice. Paul, there is some commerciality in those.
Yeah, there are commercially sensitive things about what we do. There are a series of, it's not just this proposal. In the 91 report in particular, there are a series of pumped hydro schemes that were canvassed.
I'm just wondering how it is that a 1991 report is commercial in confidence.
Because of certain aspects of what it implies for the rest of the scheme.
Sorry,
how
it
it
applies
operates.
for what?
To the rest of the scheme and how that interrelates to the marketplace.
But if you wish to have that section of the report dealing with this particular scheme, happy to make that available to you, anybody else.
Thank you. I'd ask that that be provided to the committee.
problem.
And there are two reports, you say?
1981 one, which is really 91 just updates 81 and takes exempt it for.
But it's surely the 80... I mean, what's commercial in confidence about a 1981 report? Well, I mean,
As Roger said, it gives indication about other things we do in our scheme, which are commercial and confident. But I'm happy to give you that part of the report, which deals with this scheme, which you're asking us about.
well, let's have a look at that, because then we can always come back.
Sure.
Because I'm surprised that when the Parliamentary Library approached you on my behalf, they were refused. I'm just having trouble following that, but if that's your explanation, let's have a look at what you can do, and then we can perhaps we'll talk to you some more. You might find that visiting the Estimates Committee will become more a common feature of your work. I'm sure you'll be very pleased to hear that. And as I say, because that's part of the responsibilities about being a GBE. You seem to think that you've got an entirely different view of your role.
For a corporation, yeah. Very different. When I ran GBEs, I could have Crown protection. I have no Crown protection. We used to borrow under the AAA rated of the governments you dealt with. We don't. We borrow under our own rating. We raise our own money. The company rises and falls on our own performance.
What makes
That's
you
the
different from Australia Post?
I'm not sure about Australia Post, I can't comment. But I'm going to say for us, we're a corporation under corporations law. Most others are statutory corporations, which is a
Mr.
big
Broad,
difference.
do you resent being here today?
Not at all.
Senator Carr, that's
But
not
Senator Carr,
really an appropriate question.
I'm happy to take on notice and provide you with the, ensure that the department provides you with the legal differentiation in terms of at least Snowy
Thank you,
Hydro
Minister. Thank you,
structure,
Minister. I
which of
appreciate
course,
that.
you know,
It's,
a notable point of what differentiates Snowy Hydro from Australia Post is that they have multiple shareholders across multiple
All right, well,
governments,
I
and therefore multiple
thank you
levels of
for that.
accountability to those shareholders, which are established in a corporate structure,
Yeah.
versus Australia Post as a GBE that, of course, only has one shareholder, being the Australian government.
Thank you. I think I'll put the rest of my questions on notice, given the time.
Thank you very much, Senator Carr.
And I appreciate you coming today, the officers from the Snowy Mountains Authority, and as I say, I look forward to having further conversations with you on this matter as we go on. Given that you say the feasibility report will be finished at the end of this year, you'll commit to it. Look, just one final thing. The arena says it'll take between 4 and 10 years to build this. What's your estimate?
I think at best estimates would be 4 if everything went your way. But the preliminary work we're showing is that the rock type may present some serious challenges to us, so probably on the more 5 to 6 year mark.
Yes, it's just that in the original press release it said it'd be finished in 2. Is that you changed your view on that?
No. For clarity, Snowy has never said it would be constructed.
Who said it was 2 then?
I'm not sure.
Was that? Have I misread the original the proposition that was put
I
forward
think on
to
the
us?
announcement day it said 4.
The announcement date was 4.
I've announced, when the Prime Minister announced on the 16th of March, the construction time, at best we thought was 4, which was at best.
Oh, I see. They said it would start next year. Do you still think it'll start next year?
Our top level view that at best we could start towards the end of next year, yes. That depends.
End of next year. Mm-hmm. You get all your approvals in place by the end of next year.
We are, one of the reasons why the costs gone up is that we're trying to overlap the approval process as we go through the feasibility process. So we're wanting to do a lot more of, certainly in the EIS particularly, we are working extremely well with the parks and other people to make sure we can identify every aspect that will be required in the EIS as we go through the feasibility.
Yes, of course. And you're quite confident this project will go ahead?
Well, I think we'll wait till the feasibility comes up. We obviously wouldn't do it if we didn't think
Yes.
this
But-
was a
but it-
possibility.
You clearly are supportive of the project, as I indicated before. I actually think it's a good idea, but you're in the mind of the board and as a management, you're confident this project will be able to be demonstrated to be feasible.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator